Well, storms often leave behind economic losses, such as those facing some airlines in Canada today. Tracy Hamilton, owner of Inspired Vacations, says last week's hailstorm in Calgary caused extensive damage to WestJet Airlines, which damaged 16 planes. Hamilton discusses what sort of consequences the airline is still facing.
The storm that happened in Calgary, obviously, it was terrible the day, probably for about the 24 hours when it happened and then afterwards. And now what's happened, particularly with WestJet, of course, with it being their home base, is they have all of those airplanes that they're now having to repair. So they're making adjustments to their schedules and having to readjust which airplanes are putting on which routes and all of those sorts of things. We haven't seen any international changes, so that part is good. I suspect that primarily it's the domestic that they're making changes to those schedules for. What we're seeing now is obviously it's costing the company a lot of money because they're having to offer their client, the traveler, discounts and flexible changes and all of that sort of thing. So